it's the new norm, right? And it's an odd norm, but it's a routine now. So yeah, we're adjusting, and I can't complain because we're still both working. We both can still provide for our families, and we're healthy, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a lot to be grateful for during this time as well.
I agree with you. And, of course, top of mind working for Habitat. And given what you do, working at Ellie Mae, I think really top of mind for me is facing this health crisis right now, I think, and being asked to shelter at home really brings to the surface how important having secure, stable, decent housing is. I'm sure that's been on
Absolutely.
your mind too. And I'm in the same position. It's an adjustment. There's a lot of juggling, but I can't complain. I mean, I have a secure, healthy place to live, and I'm really, really grateful for that. So I'm just wondering how that for you, how this crisis in particular for you has really highlighted how important housing is.
Oh, it's always top of mind, and you're right. This pandemic just highlighted again the criticality of it, and it's not just affordable housing, but it's safe, consistent housing as
Hmm.
well, right? Whether it's home ownership or being able to afford a lease that's also consistent, and you don't always feel this constant threat of it being coming up on your lease and your lease increasing by 25-30%, because we all know our salaries aren't increasing by the same clip, right? But
Right.
making sure that it's safe as well, so that when you're within the home, that you aren't having to look over your shoulder, at other things as well. And so during this time when it's scary enough to go out to buy food, so you're thinking about the safety of having food for yourselves. The last thing you want to have to think about is, do I have the safe four walls to come home to
Hmm.
every night, that I don't feel like will be ripped out from under me, right? And so, we can, there are just a couple of things that are staples for people to be able to focus on other things in life. And those staples are, security of housing, security of food, and security of health. Now, the health one is something that's top of mind for everyone, but,
Right.
if we also have to think about food and let alone housing, how are you going to think about being productive beyond that? Right.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it definitely just highlights how critical um, just safe, affordable, and consistent housing is.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought the idea of homeownership up, right? I hear you say a lot when you talk about your work at Ellie Mae, that for you it's not no family. I heard you say this a lot, and I really love this line that no family dreams about having a mortgage. They dream
Hmm.
about having a home, right?
Hmm.
And I think about that a lot because at Habitat we talk a lot about how so many families, especially here in the Bay Area, are faced with impossible choices, right? With the high cost of housing and with that volatility, especially in the rental market, um, families are often forced to think about how do I balance the cost of other basic necessities like groceries, like health needs, transportation, childcare, things like that. If I'm facing a high and rising cost of housing, how do I balance those two elements? And how do you choose when all of these things are basic necessities that you need in order to thrive? And really, a lot of what we do at Habitat is make that homeownership element affordable so that a family's not worried about meeting their mortgage. They're able to focus on thriving on other things. And so when you talk about that, when you talk about, dreaming of having that home rather than dreaming about that mortgage, what does that mean to you? What does having an affordable mortgage, having that stability, what does that make room for, would you say?
Yeah, it makes room for everything else beyond just the fundamentals, so that you can thrive. So no one dreams about going into debt, right?
Right.
That's absolutely not the case.
No one's
But
dreaming of that.
but the security of having an affordable mortgage is that it's consistent, and that it's within the budget that you have, and it's at a level that you're not going to have to worry about, right?
Mhm.
And that sense of security gives you the safe four walls, the home to come home to feel safe within, to start a family, or to provide that for your existing family, right?
Mhm.
And so when you have that foundation that is secure, that you don't have to worry about, that can just, it's there, but you don't have to worry about it being volatile, right? That is not going
Right.
to change. It's always at a level that will be consistent for you. You then can refocus your energy on other things to thrive, that you need to thrive, right? Then you can say, well, now I have more money for the groceries, or to save for these classes, to better myself, to educate myself, or for my children to do these classes to educate them, or to save for that family vacation, for
Mhm.
example, right? Just other things that to live and to thrive. I love that you use that word because there's
Mhm.
so much more beyond just the mortgage. Or,
Right.
if we're so lucky and are able to, beyond just having, to worry about having a home, right? There's
Mhm.
so much more to life that, we all should be able to enjoy in our lives. And I think that's what an affordable mortgage that translates into home ownership, the dream of home ownership, does.
Yeah, absolutely. And I Habitat, I would say, really serves that unique niche, right? There are a lot of people in the affordable housing space, and affordable housing in general is so necessary, especially here in the Bay Area. But there aren't a lot of people working in the affordable ownership space.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the top reasons that ownership housing is so important to focus on?
Yeah, so one is, the lack of the volatility, right?
Hmm.
It's your home that you own, and if you have that affordable mortgage, you know exactly the time span in order to pay it off, and it's at a level that you're comfortable with, that will fit within, what you're able to produce and pay for, right? So
Hmm.
that's one. So you don't have to worry about, the marker of 1 year, 2 year, 3 year lease, and have that in the back of your mind thinking, oh goodness, what am I going to have to do in a year's time or 2 years' time? What will the rental market look like at that point, right?
Hmm.
Even under, if you are lucky enough to be under rent control, that's great. But what happens if the building owner sells the building, right? Or
Right.
turns over in ownership? What can happen then? And so, while it's affordable, that still has and it's not ownership, it still has a finite amount of time,
Right.
right? So that part of it is, the ownership piece is really important. But then the other thing about ownership is it also becomes, an investment. It's something that, is yours,
Hmm.
and you can pass along to other generations as well. And then, one kind of unique thing of being in the Bay Area, as you've seen, our overall housing market, and for people that are lucky enough to get into it, it's a, you know decent investment over time,
Hmm.
right? For yourselves, that it can be a security or something that you can parlay into a different type of home, right? Or
Hmm.
or if needed, but I'm not sure of, the limitations of, the mortgages that you help people find. But in, down the line, if you build equity on that home, you're able to use that equity for other things in case, beyond the security of a home, you need money for something else that may come up, right?
Right. Right.
By taking out a home equity line of credit, for example. So it's much more beyond just, the affordable home. Like, there's also it's a good investment as
Hmm.
well. But again, um, if we don't focus on making it affordable to start off with, right? Or if people are just thinking about, where in the world am I going to live in 6 months? They're not thinking about, how am I going to be able to own a home, or how am I going to
Right.
invest my money, right?
Right.
So that doesn't come until you have that sense of security. That doesn't come until you make ownership affordable and attainable for people.
Absolutely. So I actually just spent the morning at Central Commons in Fremont,
Okay.
and I'm definitely bummed that, of course, under these current circumstances, we can't gather all of these women
I
on site
know.
this year.
I
But
was so excited to see the progress again.
I know. Well, luckily you have been out with us to site before, so you have actually put in some sweat, actual sweat on that site. How did that feel? And how does it feel to know now that a year later we're coming up on the actual completion of those homes that you were hoping to stand walls for last year? What is that
Yeah.
feeling, and how does it feel to have had that concrete contribution to these families' lives?
It warms my heart in so many ways, because this would have been my third year, right? Because
Hmm.
I've been participating for 2 years now, and then the first year we worked, on the first lot towards the wall, right? And so when we came back last year, we saw, actually no, it was the first building toward the street.
Hmm.
And when I came back last year, there were families that had moved in already,
Yep.
and it was amazing to see that progress. And then this last year, we dug holes towards the back wall.
Uh-huh.
So it would have been amazing to see that progress. But but when people go once or twice to volunteer, they put in the sweat. They're like, okay, I hammered, some 2x4s together. We may have gotten, some beams up or whatnot. But when you see later the faces of the people, the families of the people, the families that moved into these buildings that you help, put together, it's much more impactful, because you see that you really, really impacted these lives, and you don't know, their circumstances, or their
Mhm.
backgrounds, right? Or what they had to face prior to getting into that home, but you know now the security that you've been able to contribute to provide that security to them, right?
Yeah.
And that goes such a long way, and you will have impacted their lives so much more than you can even, fathom, beyond just the 6 hours, 8 hours that you put in that day. And then, just given my own background of, growing up in, with a family or extended families, that we struggle to have secure home, consistent housing, right?
Hmm.
um I'm just very happy to be in a position where I'm just contributing a little bit, right? But I know how impactful it'll be for these people, and I know that I wouldn't be where I am if my family had not received help to get
Hmm.
secured housing, so they could focus on other things for me and my brothers, right? So that we could focus on education and be able to be in a position
Right.
to give back now. So I just think about, when I see those families and they have secure housing now, and some of them have very young children,
Hmm.
those children now can focus on other things besides just, mom and dad trying to get, housing or secure a place to live. So
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
warms my heart. Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that, and you'll be happy to know I was out on site yesterday too, and I actually saw one of our phase one homeowners. So one of the homeowners that's living in one of those homes that you helped build that first year out for Women's
Yeah.
Leadership Build, and she was just commenting to me on how amazed she feels to be in this position this year during this current crisis, and to imagine having had to undergo this crisis in her previous living situation when they had
Yeah.
7 family members sharing a really cramped 2 bedroom apartment, and her
Mhm.
daughter, her teenage daughter, was having to go down the street to the gym or find a spot in the library just to get enough space to study. And now for the
Yeah.
first time that daughter has her own room and can actually close her door and distance learn, and she can't imagine having to navigate these current circumstances in that situation. And so she feels very fortunate to be where she is now in a secure place, having their own private spaces where they can work. She's working remotely, her daughter's distance learning, to be able to provide that environment and that stability for them both has been, like I said, this current crisis has really brought that to the surface, how key that is. So
Yeah.
you had a hand in that, and you had a hand in those first walls that are going up for these final 19 homes at Central
Mhm.
Commons, and soon we'll be handing those house keys over to those 19 homeowners. So
That's
it's always, it never gets old for me either, having been involved with Habitat as long as I have. Just that idea that when we come in, we have a hand in those stories. We're part of those families' lives for generations to come.
for
So
generations.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yes.
absolutely. So I want to thank you so much for all you've done in the past, working with us on site, everything you're doing now, helping us to take this event virtual, and know that, even if we're not hammering together on site this year, that you've done so much concrete impact for the 19 families that will move into these homes at Central Commons. So thank you so much, and I appreciate you taking time
No,
to
really,
talk
it's
with me a bit today.
absolutely, but thank you, Patty, to you and Habitat for Humanity. It's all you guys, right? And we're, we're happy to help, and all the volunteers are just happy to help in whatever small way that we can, right? But your mission statement and what you're doing for these families, and you're right, it's not just impactful now; it's for generations to come.
Mhm.
It's true. I believe it, and what we're also doing is. Creating a lot of people that will continue to help and give back in the future as well, because they're
Absolutely.
able to grow up in these homes, affordable homes that we're able to, or you guys are able to provide for them.
Well, we definitely don't do it without people like you and
Uh,
organizations like yours. So thank
yeah.
you so much.
All right. Thanks, Patty.
You stay well. I hope
Thank
your
you.
family stays well as well.
Thank you. You too. And take good care of yourself and your kids and family too.
I will do. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.